Message to the Blackman by Elijah Muhammad, Part 3. It is an act of intelligence and love for us to accept our own. One will say, what is our own? Number one, our own people, our own earth, God and his religion, Islam, the religion of peace, and our own place in the sun. The divine call us to accept our own makes sense. Everything of life will accept its own kind. Why the so-called Negroes, member of the great Asiatic nation of the tribe of Shabazz, refuses to accept its own is because of being made blind, deaf, and dumb to the knowledge of self and kind by the devils when they were babies under slavery. Today they cling to the same enemy of their fathers and the enemies of all black people upon the face of the earth because they cannot see any hope for a future for themselves in their own kind and self due to the lack of knowledge of self. They beg the enemy even for friendship, which is like the frog pleading to the snake not to swallow him after the snake has gotten him in his mouth. The black people of America have been swallowed by the slave masters who are a race of devils, says all-wise God Allah, and now refuse to let us go without hindrance and hold us a prey against the will of Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, who now seeks our deliverance, since our people love the enemy more than God. For God to fulfill his promises to deliver us from our enemies, he must go to war against the enemy and break the enemy's power of resistance to free us. War is inevitable. The so-called Negroes must come to the knowledge of truth that they have no future in the enemies who are the enemies of Almighty God, Allah. God must come to put an end to the war and, that is to say, destroy those who love to make war and delight in making mischief. The American white people delight in mistreating us, their former slaves. There's no justice for us among such people. The devil in person. They hate us if we try being good. They have turned upon us, who have turned to Allah and have accepted his true religion, Islam, and are persecuting and killing some of us just because we are Muslims, and they fear the teachings of Islam and the history and knowledge of the devils, and that all of our people will believe in Allah and his true religion, Islam. They hate unity among the so-called Negroes. A continued war is made upon us by the white devils of America. Why shouldn't we accept our own and return to our own? There is no future in this people for us. They have hundreds and thousands of my followers in jails and in state government penitentiaries, and are falsely accusing many more of putting them under unjust heavy penalties and long terms of imprisonment just because they want to be a Muslim. The refusal of the Supreme Court to hear the unjust judge's decision against my followers in Louisiana and killing the wicked, unjust plan in the Los Angeles court seeks to place against the poor, innocent Muslims that Allah saved from the police guns last April. It is enough for the unintelligent animal world to shudder and weep. Should Allah destroy such an unjust people as our slave masters' children? The day of visitation has come. She shall reap what she has sown. And who is the original man? The question above is now answered from the mouth of Allah to us, the so-called Negroes, for the first time since our straying away from our own nation. The secret of who is God and who is the devil has been a mystery to the average one of mankind, to be revealed in all of this clearness to one who was so ignorant that he know not even himself, born blind, deaf, and dumb in the wilderness of North America. All praise is due to the great Mahdi, who was come and has come, the sole master of the worlds. I ask myself at times, what can I do to repay Allah, the great Mahdi, Farad Muhammad, for his coming, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding? Most of us, having been born in the southern part of the wilderness of sin, where the member of the white race, man of sin, has always manifested himself to us, the so-called Negroes, should have known that he was really the evil one by the way he treated us. Yet we were made so dumb that we still could not recognize him. The truth of him is now being told and taught throughout the world. To his anger and sorrow, he is losing no time trying to hinder the truth of the above question. Who is the original man? He is setting watchers and listeners around me and my followers to see if he can find some other charge to put against us to satisfy his anger of the truth that we preach from the mouth of Allah, who is with us in person. The original man, Allah has declared, is none other than the black man. The black man is the first and last maker and owner of the universe. From him came all brown, yellow, red, and white people. By using a special method of birth control law, the black man was able to produce the white race. The true knowledge of the black and white mankind should be enough to awaken the so-called Negroes and put them on their feet and on the road to self-independence. Yet they are so afraid of the slave masters that they even love them to their destruction and wish that the bearer of truth would not tell the truth even if he knows it. The time has arrived when it must be told the world over. There are millions who do not know who is the original man. Why should this question be put before the world today? Because it is the time of judgment between black and white and the knowledge of the rightful owners of the earth. Allah is now pointing out to us the nations of the earth, their rightful places, and this judgment will bring an end to the war over it. Now it is so easy to recognize the original man, the real owner of the earth, by the history of the two, the black and the white. We have an unending past history of the black nation and a limited one of the white race. We find that history teaches that the earth was populated by the black nation ever since it was created. But the history of the white race does not take us beyond 6,000 years. Everywhere the white race has gone on our planet, they have either found the original man or a sign that he has been there previously. Allah is proving to the world of black men that the white race actually does not own any part of our planet. The Bible and the Holy Quran bears witness to the above, if you are able to understand it. The Holy Quran, the beautiful of scriptures, repeatedly challenges the white race to point out the part of the heavens and the earth that they created. It further teaches that they are not even their own creators. We created white man from a small life germ. The soft pronoun we use nearly throughout the Holy Quran makes the knowledge of the original man such clearer and more intelligence of how the white race creation took place. In the Bible, referring to their creation, we have us in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 creating, or rather making, the white race. The us and we used show beyond a shadow of a doubt that they came from another people. A knowledge of the white race removes once and for all times the mistakes that would be made in dealing with them. My followers and I can and are getting along with them in a more understandable way than ever because we know them. You cannot blame one for the way he or she was born, for they had nothing to do with that. Can we say to them, why don't you do righteousness when nature did not give righteousness to them? Or say to them, why are you such a wicked devil? Who is responsible, the maid or his maker? Yet we are not excused for following and practicing his evil or accepting him for a righteous guide just because he is not his maker. And most important truths that must be established in this day is our identity. This is what our God, whose proper name is Allah, is guiding me to point out to you, my people who are the members of the lost and found nation of North America. You, my people who have been robbed of your complete identity for over 400 years. It is time for you to know who you are after 400 years of submission to the white race slave masters of America and their false religion of Christianity. Our true God is not like the spook God of Christianity, who demands death for the salvation and redemption. He is offering us freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness on this earth while we live. First, you must be given the names for your forefathers, whose names are the most holy and righteous names of Allah. Again, I repeat, the restoring to you your identity is one of the first and most important truths to be established by God Himself. All nations of the earth are recognized by the name by which they are called. By stating one's name, one is able to associate an entire order of a particular civilization simply by name alone. For example, if you take the name Lu Qian, we know immediately that that is a Chinese name whose land or origin is China. a country that operates on an independent basis and is recognized through the world as a nation and whose people demand respect. We know this and more from the name Lucian. If we search among the peoples and nations of the earth, we will discover that there is an established truth from country to country and from continent to continent. It is only when we come to America and learn the names that our people are now going by that we discover that a whole nation of 20 million black people are going by the names of their white slave masters. How can a so-called Negro say that his name is Sam Jones, a white man's name with roots in Europe, when Sam Jones, Blackman, comes from Africa or Asia? My poor, blind, deaf, and dumb people are going by the wrong names, and until you accept the truth of your true identity and accept the names of your people and nation, we will never be respected because of this alone. This is one of the reasons Almighty Allah has come among us, that is, give us names, the most holy and righteous names of the planet Earth. It is Allah who gave me my name, Muhammad. From this name alone, our open enemies, the white race, know that the true and living God has come into our midst and is doing a divine work among the so-called Negroes of America. The white man knows that Islam was our religion, our civilization, and our way of life before he made us blind, deaf, and dumb to this knowledge. It has never been the white man's intention to restore to us this knowledge. Now that he sees his formerly dead ex-slave returning to their own religion, Islam, and worshiping their own God, Allah, and awakening to the truth of their true identity, he knows that God alone is bringing this change about. The white race knows and admits that it is only a matter of time when all the truth will be accepted by our people to his deepest regret. I warn you, my people, discard your former slave master names and be willing to be ready to accept one of Allah's pure and righteous names that he alone will give our people from his own mouth. A good name is indeed better than gold. I am nothing but a warner and a messenger to you, my people, not self-sent, but sent directly from Almighty God Allah. Since our being brought in chains to the shores of America, our brain power, labor, skills, talent, and wealth have been taken, given, and spent toward building and adding to the civilization of another people. It is time for you and me, the so-called Negroes, to start doing for ourselves. We must not let our children be as we are, beggars of another man for his home, facilities, clothing, food, and the means of providing a living. Man depends on land for the necessities, food, clothing, and shelter for survival. A prime requisite for the freedom and independence is having one's own land. There can be no freedom without a people having their own land. The acquisition of land has been the factor for more wars than any other cause. Economics agree that in order for any type of nation or system, capitalism or communism, democracy or totalitarianism, or what have you, to exist and have a degree of independence, there must be ownership of land. The so-called Negroes are without a state that they can call their own. We have nothing to show for our more than 310 years of forced labor and more than 100 years of our free servitude to our slave masters' children. We were brought here to work. We have worked. We are still the workers. Some of us say, what will we do if we do not work for the white man? How will we live? I say, when you are free and independent, you have a job. You have a tremendous task of doing something for self. You have the job of building a civilization for yourself, as other free, independent people are doing for themselves. As a people, we must become producers and not remain consumers and employees. We must be able to extract raw materials from the earth and manufacture them into something useful for ourselves. This will create jobs and production. We must remember that without land, there is no production. The surplus of what we produce would sell. This would develop a field of commerce and trade as other free and independent people whose population is less than that of 20 million so-called Negroes who are dependent in America. We must begin at the cradle and teach our babies that they must do something for self. They must not be like we, their fathers, who look to the slave masters and slave masters' children for all. We must teach our children now with an enthusiasm exceeding that which our slave masters used, and having our forefathers embedded the seed of dependency within us. We must stop the process of giving our brain power, labor, and wealth to our slave masters' children. We must eliminate the master-slave trade relationship. We must educate ourselves and our children into the rich power of knowledge, which has elevated every people who have sought and used it. We must give the benefit of our knowledge to the elevation of our own people. Presently in this country, and in almost every other major universities and colleges, there are thousands of young students from Africa and Asia. Yet, as young, primitive, and backward as we say these countries of Africa and Asia might be, their students here are returning to their shores. Their intent and purpose is to give their people the benefit of their learning. All civilized people give the benefit of their knowledge, skill, and wealth to their own people. Those who do not are called traitors, defectors, spies, tools, and toms. Why should we spend 12 and 16 years seeking an education only to give the benefit of our knowledge back to the one we sought it from? It is time for us to wake up. Why should we work to give the meager earnings of our labor back to our slave masters' children? Why can't we have our own? Why can't we do for our own? Why can't we learn to spend with the support of our own? Why can't we strive toward keeping our brain power and labor wealth within and among the elevating of our own? We must have that which would make us want to do for ourselves as other people want and do for themselves. You ask, how can this be done? The so-called Negroes must be taught and given Islam. Why Islam? Because Islam teaches the first thing is knowledge of self. It gives us the knowledge of our own. Then and only then are we able to understand that which surrounds us. Know thyself is the doctrine Socrates exposed, and this is the base of the educational system in America. The religion Islam makes the so-called Negroes think in terms of self and their own kind. Thus, this kind of thinking produces an industrious people who are self-independent. Islam is actually our religion by nature. Allah is the proper name for God. Islam is not a European organized white man's religion. It is time for the so-called Negroes to help their own kind and be benefited by Islam. The woman is the man's field to produce his nation. If he does not keep the enemy out of his field, he won't produce a good nation. If we love our vegetable crops, we will go out and turn up the leaves on that vegetation stalk and look carefully for worms that are eating and destroying the vegetables. We will kill that worm, right? Again, we will go out into the cotton field and look for the enemies of our cotton and try to kill that enemy. We study the poisons and chemicals of the earth, and we pour these chemicals on the enemies of our crops, and we keep the enemies from destroying them. We love a crop that we can produce every year, every season, so well that we will kill any enemy that we find seeking to destroy it. We will even kill one another if we find the other one out there trying to steal that crop. Is not your woman your most valuable crop of corn, that crop of cotton, that crop of cabbage, potatoes, beans, tomatoes? How much more valuable is your woman than these crops, that you should keep the enemies from destroying the crops? Yet you are not careful about your women. You do not love them. Why? It is because you have allowed visitors to run in and out of your house. Thus they have destroyed your love for your woman, and your woman has not the love for you that she should. This is a good sign. Until we learn to love and protect our woman, we will never be a fit and organized or recognized people on the earth. The white people here among you will never recognize you until you protect your woman. The brown man will never recognize you until you protect your woman. The yellow man will never recognize you until you protect your woman. The white man will never recognize you until you protect your woman. You and I may go to Harvard. We may go to York of England, or go to Al-Azhar in Cairo and get degrees from all of these great seats of learning. but we will never be recognized until we recognize our women. On visiting with a couple of my sons in what they call the Near East in 1959, I began in Turkey. We traveled from Turkey down to Africa to Ethiopia and the Sudan. We visited Arabia, Mecca and Medina, and we visited Pakistan. We returned home from Lahore, Pakistan on about the 6th of January 1960. We didn't even find on that entire tour such a thing as not recognizing the black woman. Everywhere we went, the black man recognized his woman. He had great respect for her. We dined in many of the top, as you say in slang, homes. We dined with some of the most influential people of these countries, government people. In some of their homes, we never did see any of their family, only men. The waiter was a man or a boy, not a woman. My beloved brothers in America, you have lost the respect for your woman, and therefore you have lost the respect for yourself. You won't protect her, therefore you can't protect yourself. She is your first nurse. She is your teacher. Your first lesson comes from your mother. If you don't protect your mother, how do you think you look in the eyes of other fellow human beings? Allah himself has said that we cannot return to our land until we have a thorough knowledge of our own selves. The first step is the control and the protection of our own women. There is no nation on the earth that has less respect for and as little control of their women as we do, the so-called Negroes here in America. Even animals and beasts, the fowls of the air, have more love and respect for their families than here the so-called Negroes of America. Our women are allowed to walk or ride the streets all night long with any strange men they desire. They are allowed to go to taverns or dance halls that they like, whenever they like. They are allowed to fill our homes with children other than our own, children that are often fathered by the very devil himself. Then when the devil man decides to marry her, the so-called Negro press and magazines will make it a front page news. The daily press will not print a so-called Negro marrying into their race, but you seem to think it an honor to your own nation when your daughters goes over to your enemies, the devils. Our women have been and are still being used by the devil white race ever since we were brought here to these states as slaves. They cannot go without being winked at, whistled at, yelled at, slapped, patted, kicked, and driven around in the streets by your devil enemies right under your nose. Yet you do nothing about it, nor do you even protest. You cannot control or protect your own woman as long as you are in the white race false religion called Christianity. This religion of theirs gives you no desire or power to resist them. The only way and place to solve this problem is in the religion of Islam. It is a pleasure to allow God to defend us from our enemies. In the religion of Christianity, the white race has had us worshiping and praying to something that actually does not even exist. Islam will not only elevate your woman, but will also give you the power to control and protect them. We protect ours against all their enemies. We protect our farms by pulling up our weeds and grass by the roots, by killing animals and birds, and by poisoning the insects that destroy our crop in order that we may produce a good crop. How much more valuable are our women, are our fields through whom we produce our nation? The white race does not want us to destroy their race by intermarrying with them. They will even kill you to protect their women. Can you blame them? No, blame your foolish self for not having enough respect for your own self and your own nation to do likewise. Stop our women from trying to look like them by bleaching, powdering, ironing, and coloring their hair, painting their lips, cheeks, and eyebrows, wearing shorts, going half nude in public places, going swimming with them, and lying on beaches with men. Have private pools for your women and guard them from all men. Stop them from going into bars and taverns and sitting and drinking with men and strangers. Stop them from sitting in those places with anyone. stop them from using unclean language in public, from smoking and drug addiction habits. Nothing but Islam will make you a respectable person. We Muslims are your examples, living here in your midst. There is no delinquency in Islam. Are you with us to put our people on top of the world? In unity, we can accomplish much. Think of the 20 million of your and my kind putting $1 a year aside for ourselves in a national treasury toward the day of want. Suppose we laid aside $1 every month against the day of want. Look at the millions that we could build up for ourselves within a few years. Suppose all of you who are wealthy would spend your wealth to build up a better or more economic system among your own people. It would do much aid to our people. Do not put your wealth in the taverns and gambling houses and on race horses and other sports. Then you will not be so easy to be pushovers when the day of want arrives. There is no need for us, millions throughout the country, spending our money for the joy and happiness of others. As a result, as soon as they throw us out of a job, we are back to their doors begging for bread and soup. How many clothing shops do we operate in the country? Very few, yet all of us wear clothes. Who made our clothes for us? Who sold them to us? We have thousands of grocery stores, but what about our naked bodies? Should we not have more stores to sell our people's clothes? Should we not sell our people everything they want and need? But no, we give all the money out of our pockets to the slave masters. We are satisfied in doing so. There are millions of us. We do not have enough factories to weave clothes for our people in America. Think over that. Where is the shoe factories? Where are the cattle that we are skinning to make shoes for our own people? These are small things, but we want equality with a nation that is doing these things. We boast that we should be recognized as equals. Let us make ourselves equals. We cannot be equal with the master until we own what the master owns. We cannot be equal with the master until we have the freedom the master enjoys. We cannot be equal with the master until we have the education the master has. Then we can say, Master, recognize us as your equal. Today you are begging the master, the slave master's children, for what? You are begging them for a job. You are begging them for complete recognition as their equals. Let us be honest with ourselves. According to history, we cannot find where the master made his slave equal until the slave made himself worthy of equality. I am with you to go on top. We cannot go on top with the weight that is hanging on us. We cannot charge the white man with all of our faults. We are supposed to be, according to his own teachings, free. We are supposed to have been freed from him approximately 100 years ago. Have we exercised that freedom? We must answer that we have not availed ourselves of that freedom. If we have not availed ourselves of that freedom, which he says he gave us, why should we think hard of him about the way he treats us? This may be a little hard to swallow. Our fathers, in the days they were set free by the slave masters, had no knowledge of how to go for self. Today, you are educated. You claim that you have equal education. Then why don't you take a walk? Before we can be justified in accusing the other man, let us examine ourselves first. I do not say that our fathers are the ones to blame for their ignorance, and neither are you. Neither they nor you are at fault. The root of the cause can be placed back into the laps of the slave masters. When the slave masters say we are free and continue to say that we are free, should we not take a free step? We charge the slave master's children with mistreating us. Suppose you tell a man that he is free. Get out of your house and go into your own house. But the free slave says, No, I will work for you. I'll serve you as a servant if you will allow me to remain in your house. The man of that house tells you, I will not give you a new suit this year. I'll not pay you today for any work. Go home and sit down. Why should you say to that man that he is not treating you right? Why say to that man, I have to have a job the same as you? Has he not offered the door to you? If the slave master did not mean that you and I were free, we should have them to admit it. You remain as a free slave to your slave master. You demand that he recognize you as his equal. You are making yourself look so small in the eyes of the world. If every so-called Negro were fired, what would you do? Would you unite and go to Washington and demand that the government give you a job? Would you be foolish enough to do that? If they beat you by the thousands, what right have you to say that he should not lash you? You have made yourself a slave. You continue to preach a doctrine of remaining with the slave master. You are still called by your slave master's names. By rights, international rights, you belong to the white man of America. He knows that. You have never gotten out of his shackles of slavery. You are still in the authority over your wife as long as she goes in your name, regardless of her separating herself from you. If she has not gotten a legal divorce or freed herself from your name, you are still in authority over her by law. Likewise, you are still under the authority of the chains of your slave masters. You have not tried to free yourself from them. You have not exercised the freedom that they claim they have given you. Today is the day of decision. We have lived here more than 400 years. That you know, according to the prophecy, is the prediction of our state among these people. That time has expired. That time is up. The decision is being made for your departure and mine. It is important to God Almighty, whose proper name is Allah, that I speak to you according to the time that we are living in now. Today you are standing face to face with the alternative of accepting your own or forever being erased from the earth as a people. No one is trying to make you see the importance but your own. Why do you not see? You are blindly looking toward the slave master to tell you this. How can the master tell the slave, look slave, your day has arrived. You should sit in the seat of the authority. We cannot beg for jobs anymore. We cannot build a future on a job that was given to us by the slave master 400 years ago. The day has arrived. He has no more work for us to do. He is not willing to tell us that, but the time has arrived when deep within his own heart, he desires that you go out and find a job for yourself. He will forever be burdened. The burden will get greater and greater as long as he tries to carry you and me. It is time for a separation of the two, black and white. Allah God is calling for a separation. To the lost and the found, members of the tribe of Sabaz, I warn you, my people, and especially the women, be aware of the trick the devils are using to instill the idea of a false birth control in their clinics and hospitals. Sterilization is not birth control, but the end of all possibility to bear children. The example of the clinic in Fuqua County, Virginia, where poor and helpless black mothers are pressured into accepting sterilization, is certainly not confined to that clinic alone. I would be better to do as many African and Asian husbands and wives have done, to take care of these matters yourselves rather than rely on such treachery and deceitful counsel. I say beware of being trapped into the kind of disgraceful birth control laws now aimed almost exclusively at poor, helpless black peoples who have no one to rely on. Who wants a sterile woman? No man wants a non-productive woman. Though he may not want children for a time, he does want a woman who can produce a child if he changes his mind. Using the birth control law against the production of human beings is a sin that Allah God is against, and for which he will punish the guilty on the day of judgment. Both the Bible and the Holy Quran teachings are against birth control, so you and I too should be against it. The white race is a race that was produced by using the birth control law, says God to me. Do not accept this death plan of devils to destroy and keep us from being a people. There is no people on earth, even the little savage pygmy of Africa and Malayan islands of the Pacific, love their own, who will let anyone change or destroy their identity and culture without a fight. The American black women are ignorant of the real movie behind the so-called birth control schemes proposed and demanded by white officials. The motive behind these schemes is not designed to promote the welfare of black families, but to eliminate these families in the future. Our enemies, the devils, know and now seek to prevent us from being a nation through our women, as Pharaoh attempted to destroy Israel by killing off all the male babies of Israel at birth. The 1,000 years before Moses, Yaqub killed off the black babies at birth to produce this present white race. Pharaoh was envious of Israel's future of becoming a great nation, beloved of Allah, which would overcome Egypt and her future as a world power. The same goes for the so-called Negroes and the slave masters' children. The slave masters envy their once slaves' future and wants to destroy it. So the best thing to do is to tell you the truth whether you care for it or not. I will feel then that I have done my duty as a member of the same nation as you. My love for you and your future is the same as that for myself. The life of this world and its sport and play is only temporarily. The American so-called Negroes are gravely deceived by the slave masters' teachings of God and the true religion of God. They do not know that they are deceived and earnestly believe they are right regardless of how vile the white race may be. My poor people are mentally blind, deaf, and dumb, and full of fear. Blind because they do not see the light of truth after being shown it for over 30 years. Deaf because they will not hear the truth, Islam that has come to them from Allah through the messenger, myself. They are dumb because they will not see or open their eyes and hearts after the light has shone clear for many years. You are full of fear that was instilled when you were babies as a slave, so Allah said. The fear was put in you by the white slave masters through tortures, lynchings, burnings, rapings, and killings, and has caused you to be blind, deaf, and dumb. This fear of the white slave master has caused you to love them in a crazy kind of way. You, my dear people, are like a woman desperately in love with a man who does not love her. Therefore, the love is blind. The man can beat, torture, ravage, humiliate, shame, and mock, but she still yet love him. And even when someone tries to tell her that this man is no good for her and certainly does not love her, she will yet love him and will become angry and defend such a man. This is a very sad thing, but a very true picture of the so-called Negroes. They love their tormentors. Beware, they do not love you. They are like dogs with a bone. They do not want you to be taken by Allah's messenger to your salvation. They want to carry you with them to their doom. The wicked white devils are by no means asleep to the knowledge of the time. They are really on the job to keep all of you blind, deaf, and dumb, and to what is going on in this day and time, the mentally dead. They watch every step of the righteous Muslims, seeking to do them harm in their endeavor to spread the truth of Islam. The people of Allah, the so-called Negroes, are dumb to the time as the people were in the days when Moses was sent to Pharaoh to bring his people out of the bondage into a land wherein they could enjoy independence. Instead, the Israelites, being joyful to hear that Allah was ready to deliver them from Pharaoh and give them the land of their own, they set out to contend with Moses and to help Pharaoh, not God, Jehovah. The government of Pharaoh had no love for Israel, just as America has no love for the so-called Negroes. Pharaoh became afraid of the truth that Moses was teaching his people in the midst of his country. So Pharaoh began to plan the death of Moses and the future of Israel by killing off the babies. Pharaoh wanted Moses put to death because he was teaching his people the truth of Pharaoh and his government of wickedness. Today, America is afraid of the power of our great number presents. She fears that if we ever unite, we would overnight become independent. America desires to keep us a subjugated people, so she, therefore, wants to stop our birth, as Pharaoh did. The birth control law or act of today is directed at the so-called Negroes and not at the American whites. The story of Moses and Pharaoh is a warning to you today. They are seeking to destroy our race by the birth control law, just as Pharaoh sought to stop Moses' race by killing off all of the male babies at birth. They are seeking to destroy our race through our women. Do not let them trick you. Follow me, and we will, with the help of Allah, stop this most wicked sin against our people.